Part of a travel day on the Jeff Cameron Show, if I could speak right out the gates, as we did want to get you a little bit of content here today for the pod. And so it is. We will, in a moment, kind of transition and talk about Azareye'h Thomas because he's number 3 on our list of top 40 players, which, by the way, Tom, before we get into that, I would just say is kind of surprising. Did you think that was surprising?
I thought that was a little high. We'll discuss that, I suppose, in the official version of it. But I think AZ is the most talented corner we've had in a long time. I want to say that first. But we're asking for a lot of development that we have not seen for him to be the anchor of the secondary. He could be. He's got the athletic profile to be. Could expand on that in that section. But, I mean, Fentrell Cypress ain't bad, and Renardo Green was really, really good. So
yeah,
this is going to be an interesting conversation. You could see a situation where almost you feel like Azareye'h didn't live up to a hype, but it's kind of our fault, I guess, because we loved him from the moment we saw him as a freshman. He is prototypically exactly what you want for an outside corner, though.
Yeah, he is, and we'll get into the details of why Azareye'h Thomas has such high expectations going into this year and our love for him, because you and I probably were chief amongst them right out the gates.
Yes.
Of people that thought, oh, superstardom tabbed on him because he's got it.
Yes, so when they were doing the first tour of duty workouts and we got to see the freshman on campus a couple of years ago, he was in the same group as Sam McCall, who was everybody's favorite recruit, and he was mine too until I got to that day at the tour of duty, and I just thought, man, there's something about AZ, the kid who committed super late in the class that nobody was talking about, and he's from the Panhandle. He was smoother, he was quicker, he was faster, he was taller. I'm like, is there something about when Sam McCall puts on pads that he's going to be just this other thing? Because I think the better player is in the same group with Sam, and his name's Thomas.
Yeah, it is pretty funny, and we see guys sometimes. This is just a broad, talk about what happens when we go over to practice those first days when a new player comes in, and they are tabbed and hyped, and they are guys that come in with the weight of expectation. When that happens, we all go out there, members of the beat that cover this program, and everybody's got their notebook, everybody's got their pad, looking at numbers, making sure that they know that's the right. Oh, that's the kid, right? And very rarely, the most famous I think incident that we've had, incident's probably the wrong word, but the most famous moment in which somebody immediately stood out that was hyped, I think, twice it's happened, right? 2 times we've been standing right next to each other.
Yeah. Azareye'h Thomas is wearing the number of one of those players this year, number 8. He was wearing, I think, 23 at the time.
I was going to say, wasn't he 23?
Yeah, Jalen Ramsey was working with second or third team. It was the opening of the IPF. We were allowed.
That's what it was. That's exactly what I was trying to pin down the moment where we were. I knew it was the brand new indoor practice facility, but yes, and you're exactly right. And he was wearing 23.
Yeah.
But yeah, we right off the bat were like, who is that?
Yep.
And then we found out it was, as Tom just said, it was Jalen Ramsey.
Sure. Well, and sometimes you get it wrong because McFadden, who was awesome for a year, but I remember during the Peach Bowl in 2015, you saw the two of them talking on the field pregame before Florida State took on Houston. You're like, ooh, man, because McFadden was a giant, and he was really good early in his career, but it obviously didn't pan out the rest of the way to be like a Jalen Ramsey's career. The other guy was open practice in 2011, and he was by the name of Rashad Green. That's for me at least. It was watching that open practice and watching everybody do route tree, and the way that guy got faster on a hitch, and the way that guy got faster on an in cut, an out cut, a post, it just looked different. And Rashad ends up being, he's in the record books as one of the most prolific receivers in Florida State history across all categories.
We are on the same page. Those are the two that I would have named as well. And I knew we were going to be on the same page with Jalen Ramsey. I wasn't sure about Rashad Green, but you're absolutely right. The only other time that I walked away from something where first time seeing somebody was not a practice at all, but it was the first time we ever walked by Eddie Goldman.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember walking past Eddie Goldman and thinking, well, my God.
Well, there's another one. There's another one for you because that was a poster photo fan day, which was also media day. Boy, they packed a lot of things into about
back in the day. Yeah.
It was Mario Edwards Jr.
Oh, yeah.
because Mario Edwards Jr. came in here. I mean, the one thing that made me frustrated about him, and look, he has one of my favorite individual plays of all time against Nick Marshall in the championship game. It ends up being the drive that Ramsey gets trucked. But early on in that drive, he stops Nick.
Yeah, he sets up a third down. We should have got off the field.
Yes, and then Marshall throws it into a football-sized hole while falling. I mean, it made no sense.
Yeah,
that was very frustrating. It's okay; it all ended well.
We won,
but Mario was a great player here. I mean, key plays and big moments. The Clemson game in 2013, he had a scoop and score. But we always thought that he was carrying a little bit too much weight, and then he shows up for pro day at Florida State,
and he's in great shape.
He's like 25 pounds leaner. You're like, God Almighty. Okay.
Yeah, that's on Jimbo. He never made him get into shape. Yeah. But he did have a very good career here, very productive. He had a good NFL career. Yeah, man, it's interesting the way those things play out. But sometimes our point is that a player leaps off the page, for lack of a better descriptor. And, but it's pretty rare. It's pretty rare that you see somebody and say, dude might play right now. Like tomorrow, if they had to play a game, that true freshman probably gets some run. And, that's kind of what we're going to talk about when we get into the Azareye'h Thomas bit of this, and we do our official sort of Warchant countdown once we kind of meander out of the Jeff Cameron Show segment of this. But, that's I feel like AZ kind of fits that category for you and me with the way we saw him so early on in practice. It was simply amazing. How you enjoying the Open?
It's good so far. I think the weather has been a moderate storyline. Obviously, it's been brutal this morning at the time we're taping this. You're watching guys on the first tee battle 26-mile-an-hour steady winds in their face with gusts up to 35. I mean, I know exactly what that's like from life, not from playing golf, because that's what I have here. That's what I have out my front door all the time. But it's funny, man. I mean, you put any type of action or spin on the ball, and it's just going to balloon to the left, balloon to the right, and so they're struggling out there, and that's okay by me. As long as it's within reason on the weekend, I'm okay. To allow guys to make some shots and execute some shots, because the last time they played it here with Phil and Henrik Stenson is one of my favorite golf memories ever. It's a 2-man match over 2 days, and it was some of the best golf television I've ever seen.
You could argue that, the storyline turned out to be Phil Mickelson that day because of the fact that everybody wanted him to win and it was the Open and all this stuff. But Stinson, of course, played maybe the best round of golf we've ever seen in a major on a Sunday. Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the dumbest thing.
It's up there with Johnny Miller's legendary 63. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's up there with the great rounds ever. It's insane. And the thing that's different about it is that if he hadn't done it, he would have lost. He had to shoot the round of a lifetime on that day in particular in order to do it.
Right. Yeah. And that's one where Phil's kicking himself because he had a shot at 62 on Thursday. And he missed the putt, either lipped out or he left it just short on the 18th hole. And it's a game of inches. Like the loser of that particular Open Championship was going to be one of the most unlucky second place finishers of all time, because I think relative to par,
the total score was the second best ever.
Second in 150 years, 160 years of playing the Open.
They were bested by the best score to par ever.
and, and I will never, ever forget that on 18, hole 72 of the tournament, Stenson hits a drive, and it's flirting with the fairway bunker.
Yeah.
And it misses by a matter of maybe 12 feet. Mm-hmm. But all it takes is one bad bounce, and it kicks right, and it goes in there. And you have a completely different story. Like, all sports are this way. I mean, it's the edge of a cleat touching first base, on a four, and so there is no play at first, and the run comes home, and they're safe, and the inning continues, game's tied, whatever. Football, it's a blade of grass, and you cross the plane, or you drag your toe, and it's a touchdown with your second foot. It's always like Nick Faldo is famous for this. It's always fractions, and in golf, it's just, I feel like it's heightened even more. You might not love golf if you're listening out there, but just because it's individualized and you can consider and ponder something for 4 or 5 minutes,
you got time.
Shot, or in Shane Lowry's case this morning on hole 11 when he hit the gorse, 27 minutes, like that you can ponder what comes next. I mean, you just see how thin. Look at Xander Schauffele's major win. That thing went 360. I mean, It's just, that's the definition of you'll be remembered forever, or you'll be a piece of trivia that nobody remembers, like John Van de Velde. People don't know him unless you're a golf lifer, but that's how it works.
I got asked yesterday. I was out and about and had occasion to run into some folks who are excited about football, who are listeners of the show, and I appreciate that always. And they said, "Are you ready? Are you ready for it to begin?" And I guess I really hadn't pondered it completely until they asked it, for some reason, the way they asked it, because it's true. Like, one of the reasons we're recording right now is that it's travel time, and you get to Charlotte. But I think it's like when I turned that mic on Monday to do the first interview around lunchtime, and have an opportunity to talk with coaches and players. It's from that moment on, Tom, that it's nonstop. It's the sport we love. It's what we do, but it's nonstop from the moment I hit record on that day. And then from there, it all unfolds. You end up coming back from Charlotte. You've got shows. It's practice week. Team practices on a Wednesday. And you're never going to look back from here. It's just like this season launches officially all basically on Monday, which is incredible to think about, because you and I are talking on a Friday. That means it is finally here. We can just say it.
There is stress that comes with that. As you say it, I'm like, ooh, okay, all right, time to gear up. This is one thing where, as this sport becomes more and more professionalized, as the veil drops closer to the ground completely, I think we're pretty much there, but it took people a long time to come around to the fact that this is essentially professional sports. I think everybody understands that now. And you're asking these kids to play, 14 games, 16 games, if you're going to go the distance. And I think it's only going to expand that way. From our perspective, I'm thrilled that there are 3 bye weeks this year, because we're going to need a break. December is no longer a holiday for us. December is, and I'm not crying, this is a wonderful job, but December is now one of the busiest months of our year. It's almost like it's its own apex. December used to be the come down, and it's just not anymore. So I can't imagine. My point is, I can't imagine what that's like for a player. I can't imagine what that's like for a coach. They're going to need to standardize 2 bye weeks a season. We're getting to the way the calendar works next year with Labor Day. We're getting 2 bye weeks in 2025, but they're going to have to standardize that. People are going to need a break. This is like the NFL, 2 bye weeks as they expand to 18 games, perhaps. You're just going to have to make that so moving forward. There's too much action from August through the end of the year.
I think they will do that. We've heard all along that once everything gets worked out and the 2 Power 2 leagues kind of have their own rules, I think you're going to see a lot of things change about how the operation of a season plays out. I really think that's probably accurate. I do have to comment on this because it's been a minute since I just laughed, as they say, out loud from a viral clip on the internet. Lane Kiffin undressing Paul Feinbaum yesterday. I don't normally spend any time on Paul Feinbaum, only to readdress something dumb that he said so that I can clarify for the fan base what I think is happening, perhaps, or why he would say it. But if you haven't seen Lane Kiffin sitting down with Paul Feinbaum yesterday, do yourself a favor and watch that. It is the calmest, most straightforward undressing of a man on his own show with the cameras rolling that I have seen in ages. It's uncomfortable. When you get to your face told, I'm not really sure what you're good at. I don't know anything that you're good at. How do you recover from that? I mean,
yeah.
And you could see him fidgeting, and he's already a dork. And so he's fidgeting, and Lane is very calm, just staring at him. You're like, whoa, if I didn't know better, Lane could backhand him.
Well, and Lane's in an interesting place because his father just passed. So there's inner rage there that you can sense. And I almost felt like he channeled his inner Nick Saban. He had a couple of mannerisms from Nick, because when he said, I want to thank you for getting me fired.
Yeah. For help getting me fired, yeah.
The tone, the body language, the extension of the hand towards Paul. I mean, it is Saban at the podium in Alabama. I found that fascinating, but it was his way of controlling himself without coming apart at the seams. You could tell how much rage was within his rib cage there, Lane Kiffin. And then Paul tries to play it off with small talk about Miley Cyrus, and Lane decides to stone cold stun him into oblivion.
Yeah, he doubled down. Yeah, he's like, yeah, you called my career that I'm the Miley Cyrus of coaching. You were wrong there again, because she's gone on to have a great second part of her career. And then he tries to incorporate. He's like, ha ha, yes, see what happened to her? He's like, right. So what are you good at?
Yeah, because Paul was trying to spin it off like, well, look at you now. You know, it worked. It all worked out. And he's like, well, not because you're good at anything.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's worth your time if you want to laugh. It's just, I haven't seen one of those in a while. And I was like, oh, football's back. Here we go. This is good. I mean, I would have given anything to be a producer, or to be on the mic, to hear the producer in that moment. Like, because clearly he wants out. He's like, okay, on that note, he hits eject.
Well, they ejected the B-roll of Dallas is what they did, because they didn't want the camera to pick up how feeble Paul was in that moment. But they weren't quick enough. You get a good second or two of seeing him feel shame.
Imagine the moment if it comes to pass that Florida State is in fact announced as the newest member of the SEC. Not that I'm pining for it.
Yeah.
But if it were to happen, like, now you got to deal with all the people that you've talked so much about. You got to deal with the players and coaches and other media members. Yeah, it could be.
No, but he's taken the side where Florida State was a natural fit, so he can say, "I've said it before," and that would be a fact.
Yeah, there's 700 to 1 quotes the other way, though.
You can't be wrong if you take all sides.
Yeah, well, we get the Hall of Fame game coming up on the 1st, and we will all be entrenched for forevermore for this upcoming season, because it begins officially after this weekend, basically. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it, and we're excited about it. I do want to mention our great sponsor, Manscaped. You need the aftershave lotion. That's what you need. They've got that for down there. It's a soother. It's a salve. It's a beauty. They've got boxers. They've got the anti-chafing, as Tom and I both know.
Yep.
They've got the weed whacker. They've got the lawnmower. Now, again, I need the weed whacker more than I need almost anything else, because when you get past 40, hair just starts jutting out all over the place in places you don't want. And I'm not going to be that guy that I see everywhere, where I walk by and I'm like, man, this is a hard conversation to have, because my man's got a nose hair that's grown past his lip, or 17,000 hairs jutting out of your ear. You don't have to live like that. You don't have to look like that. You get yourself the weed whacker. You chop it up. It's perfect. You're clean. You're neat. Everybody's happy. Speaking of happy, you can save a lot of money. Get 20% off, free shipping with the code WARCHANT at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Be sure to use the promo code WARCHANT. Again, 20% off right now. WARCHANT is the promo code. Go to manscaped.com. Cash in, kids. You've been thinking about it. You should do it. Salve. Get the salve or the balm, whatever it's anti-chafing. It says it in there. It says it in there.
Don't dust them. Preserve them.
You could lightly dust them, I suppose. Okay. Let's get to the top 40. Let's get to number 3 on our list. He is Azareye'h Thomas, and we alluded to him earlier as we started this little conversation for the pod. But now we get to talk about him in earnest and what our expectations are and why he was so high on that list. By the way, if you look on the screen there, 2 months of Warchant for $1. It's $1. There it is. Use code FSU1. Code FSU1. It's $1. What are we doing? Season's about to start. Go get in. Get involved now. Join the community. Have fun. Get access to everything for 2 months for $1. Ridiculous. I don't know why we do this. I get mad when we do this. We should be charging $100 a month. $100 a month, and it would be a value. But instead, we give it away for $1. Okay. There's the top 40 list on your screen. Number 3 is Azareye'h Thomas. We had the good fortune of talking to him recently, and an Ask Me Anything last, when was that we talked to him?
Might have been 2 months ago. Yeah.
3 months ago, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a nice little added value for Warchant.com subscribers where you can talk to players and you can talk to, and you did, the number 3 player on the list for the Warchant Top 40, which is not bad considering Azaria has never been a starter before. That's fascinating.
I've got him at 6. You had him at 8. The list is before us. If you're just listening to the pod and you don't know, it's Matt had him at 2. Wow. Gene 3, Ira 3, Corey 4, Aslan 4. That's the list. Tom and I, the lowest. Tom actually had him the lowest. Tom hates Azaria Thomas.
Yeah, that's what it is.
but I understood it because I'm closer to you than I am them in a way. I had him at 6. Here's the deal. I thought when I was putting together the list, at one point, I think I moved him. I think I had him at 5. I moved him down a spot. Then I reconfigured that top 10 again, and I kind of moved him up to 4. And then eventually I settled on 6. So even in my mind, between 4 and 6 seemed about right to me. And I guess you could make the case because he looked great in spring. And he's now accustomed. He's now acclimated. He's now been here a long time. The rigors, the day-to-day rigors of preparing your body and your mind to almost have to be a professional, right? To play that many games, to withstand all of that. He's never been in a better position to do it. He's in great shape. He's a smart kid. He's a humble, hardworking, straight-ahead kid. He gets it. He's poised to have a huge, huge year. And athletically, it's all there. Physically, it's all there. There's no shortage of wow moments with him once a week in practice. Once a week when we're watching them go, when he's going against the best receivers on this roster one-on-one, and he's steady making plays. He'll have entire practices where he locks it down, where you just don't have an opportunity to catch a pass. He's physical. He's fast. He can jump. He gets in your hip pocket, turns and goes. I'm really, really excited about he and Fentrell Cypress this year. I think Florida State's secondary has a chance to carry the day. And we've talked a lot about how we think the defense is going to. If it does, it'll be because Azaria lives up to what we thought he would be all that time ago that we described earlier in the pod, which is we thought he was an athletic freak. And now he gets a chance to showcase it because even though he's never been a starter, he's played a ton. If you go back and look at the game logs, I mean, he's kind of close to being a starter.
By the end of the season, especially, he was out there a bunch. I don't want to say like he's never done it before. There's no proof of concept on the field. That would be a false claim. But it's just, Bernardo was an important piece to the secondary last year. And you could go a couple of ways about it. Like, I think my top 7 is inarguably the correct top 7 ahead of Azaria Thomas because there are a lot of irreplaceable players. Marvin Jones, Daryl Jackson, Malik Benson, Josh Farmer, Patrick Payton, Darius Washington, and DJU. I think those guys are more irreplaceable than Azaria Thomas, as good as he is. But that's my opinion because I've got Cypress at 11, not far behind him. Like, for example, with you've got AZ at 6 and Fentrell at 10. Now, if you're going to value AZ higher, I'll use Gene as an example. He's got AZ at 3. He has Fentrell all the way down at 14. It's almost like you have to distance them. Corey has him at 4, and he's got Fentrell at 18 on his list. So if you don't think Fentrell is top 15 worthy or top 12 worthy, then you got to rank Azaria higher because he's more important. I just think Fentrell's not bad at all at it.
Well, I think he's actually going to be really good, but this is an Azaria Thomas video.
It is, but that's how you define the value of him, I think. And for me, what I'm going to find interesting is there's plenty of tape on Azaria. To your point, there is. But when you face your passing opponent and all things are equal, who do they attack first? Like, do opposing coaches go after the new guy relative to Fentrell Cypress, who was a PFF darling 2 years ago at Virginia, was a solid player for Florida State last year? Do they attack 8 first, or do they attack Cypress first? I'll be fascinated to see because I think you could argue it either way. Florida State could have an answer for him. As AZ could have an answer in that moment. They say, oh, we're staying the hell away from him. Let's go work the other side of the field, Earl Little, Fentrell Cypress. But I just wonder if coaches want to see it and they want to see proof before they decide to go throw the ball a different way.
It's been a minute, and I want to word this properly, but it's been a minute since let's say you're watching Florida State's on the road and we're not on the road to cover them, and we sit down to watch the broadcast, and they do the intro and you hear the music, and then the announcers come in and they describe the matchup. And when they describe the matchup, they talk about the two key things tonight that could lead these teams to victory. You know, what has to happen for this offense, what has to happen for this defense, et cetera. It's been a minute since that lead involved Florida State secondary. It's been a minute since they led with going up against a great quarterback tonight at Notre Dame. Riley Leonard is going to have his hands full because this Florida State secondary may be the best in the country, with Azareye'h Thomas at one corner, Finchell Cypress, and then Shaheem Brown. You know, like, you could get into, you can see that being said.
Oh, sure.
You can hear that intro. You can hear that descriptor this year probably quite a bit. I get a sense that that's going to be the case, because if Florida State is able to slow the run down, stop the run, be good against the run, which they did last year, if you're able to do that, now teams have to throw the ball, and you've got guys coming off the edge that are going to force the issue.
Yep.
And now we've got two very experienced players who I think are poised to, well, really more than that. I throw Shaheem in there. That guys that can jump routes, guys that have to understand now that they have the ability to kind of pattern read and jump routes. Let's go.
Yes. So this is why I've got Azareye'h. You might say, well, Tom, you're making all these points that Fentrell's more experienced. Why don't you put Cypress over AZ? It's to your point. It's the ball skills. And even a couple of years ago when they worked in AZ towards the end of the year, I remember in the bowl game against Oklahoma, you're watching AZ execute zone principles in a way that a lot of guys don't. He can keep his eyes on the quarterback and still have the athleticism to move around, match a route, know the leverage, know where to be. And if you combine this pass rush, or this, it could be from the interior as well. It might not just be the edges. I mean, if you have Farmer or Jackson on a third and obvious, and you're leaving one guy to block them, or you move a Durajaye in there or a Lolohea in there because you want to go a little bit smaller in a sub package, there's going to be opportunities for defensive backs to make plays. Some guys just want to knock the ball to the ground. Some guys want to take the ball, catch the ball, and take it into the end zone and score themselves. And I feel like AZ is in the latter category. One of the most athletic interceptions in Florida State history belongs to AZ Thomas. It just didn't count last year because of a nonsense penalty. But he's a ball hawk. And I think that matches, to your point, very, very well with how this defense is going to be constructed. So the reason I've got him higher is I think he's primed to make more splash plays for Florida State, give Florida State short fields, take it to the house. That he seems to have whatever that it factor is. We see it in practice an awful lot.
Well, he's 6'2" and long and 200 pounds and can jump, and he's a former receiver. So, that's the other part of this. When you're describing guys that can change the game when they get their hands on the ball, he's better than most because he's a former receiver. He's got body control. That catch you just alluded to looked like a professional wide receiver tightroping the sidelines and getting his feet in improbably, right? That's what a receiver does and makes it look easy, even though it's unbelievably athletic. But, that's the other reason that I look at it. He's going to get his chances, and I think he's more apt to do something with those because he has those hands.
The other thing is he got more furious, and I mean that in a good way. He showed more fire on the field towards the end of last season as he got on the field a little bit more. And that's within his personality to play with the fire and the passion. Some guys are quiet, and that's great. Like Xavier Rhodes was a pretty quiet player, and he was a first-round pick. You can do it different ways. But to me, that's naturally who Azareye'h Thomas is, to play a passionate corner and be a one of those
physical and aggressive. Yeah.
Well, like a fiery on the field leader, physical, aggressive, all those things. And when I saw that towards the end of the season, to me, that signaled comfort. The game has slowed down for him. He knows he's good. He knows the speed of the game is not going to overwhelm him. All he's got to do is go out there, be free, loose, and play. That's a great indication that he could have the year that we're all projecting him to have, which is somebody who's going to be, a top 10 player for Florida State. It could get real fun real fast with this secondary. They've got the one question at center field, like basically the deep safety. And if they figure that one out, I think they're loaded everywhere else. And you let this defensive line eat, you win on first and second down. you could see a barrage of turnovers in Florida State's favor, and Azarie would be the leading candidate there.
Got a lot of options for that other position, and that's why I get excited, because it's not like there's the devoid of talent to select from with that deep safety, right? They've got people, they've got dudes, and really all roaming through that secondary is a bunch of guys that are ready to get in and make plays. They have recruited that position exceptionally well. We don't ever, when we talk about recruiting, ever worry about, does Florida State have the corners that they need, the secondary that they need, partly because they made a coaching change, which I was a big fan of. And they've been really good since that happened, and they've always recruited well.
So the answer to your question, I think, is 2015/16, when Florida State's secondary was talked about as a group. 15 probably with Ramsey and Derwin James.
Yeah, 15, I think they did.
Asante Samuel they talked about, but we weren't winning football games, and it didn't matter. Like, the quarterback rating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the name.
The quarterback rating throwing to him was worse than if you just threw an incompletion. Like, that's an amazing stat, but we weren't winning. And that's the difference this time is now we're winning ball games, and they could be the reason why.
Azarie Thomas, number 3 on our Warchant top 40. Fun young man to watch play football, uber talented, really focused. We think he's going to have a breakout season. Turned in at number 3 on the warchant.com top 40 list. We salute you, Azarie Thomas. Tune in to see who's number 2 and number 1. I think you guys probably know, right?
It's probably a fair guess.
All right. We can wrap it up now. For those listening on the pod, we've got our breakout video, Tom, there. You got your breakout video for the top 40 list. You can perfectly edit.
Using terminologies and so forth. Might as well. It feels like the last day of school, doesn't it? It's inverted because, how about the last day of summer? Do it that way. It feels like the last day of summer. And
hey, don't say it too loud. My kids will be furious. They're already pissed off. I got to tell you, I don't know why, but I find and take great joy in their frustration of the return of school.
Yeah, man.
I think it's because we had to go through it. We all had to go through it. We did our time in our youth to go through all these stages, and you come out the other side and you reap some benefits from that. You also inherit a ton of responsibility, but there's a good and the bad with all that. Well, the good is that existential dread that you felt before going back to school in the weeks that led up to it doesn't affect me at all. Doesn't change my life at all. In fact, it makes it more orderly.
No, so the one negative would be that means the semester's coming back, so there's more traffic on the roads. So if you drive through school zones, those lights start flashing. You got to go 10 miles an hour. For me, when I was living in my mid-20s around campus, God, I loved when they would go away for the summer.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Places, I don't have to wait in line for this. I can go to AJ's Sports, and it's empty. This is great. But now, I agree. Get them all back. Let's get the routine going.
You'll just laugh. I mean, yesterday, and I'm the guy who chides. I walk by and I'm like, oh, wow, July is flying past. And then, and I'll just say it. It's like when the days get shorter and my wife gets so mad that the sun's going down earlier, and I stare out of the window and go, days are definitely getting shorter.
So what you could tell them is next week is say, like, guys, you know that next week is the last full week of July, right? Like, it's the last 7-day week that all occurs in the month of July.
That'll hurt your feelings. Then it's the month of school. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? It's the month of school. Unreal. Better go school shopping. Get your notebooks ready, boys. Here we go. He's Tom Lang. I'm Jeff Cameron. I will talk to you on Tuesday. We travel. I'm out from here, off to Charlotte, back on Tuesday with a full show. We'll move headlines to Thursday because the boys are getting back a little later than I am.
And we've got content on Warchant TV on Monday. So we will have ACC kickoff. There will be a lot. Get to the channel. There'll be a lot of good stuff.
100%. Yeah, my apologies. That's right. We definitely have stuff for you, just not a live show is all. That's just that. They won't let us do a live show. What are you going to do? Nope. It's $1, 2 months, everything that Warchant is, $1. Sign up. Stop being a deadbeat. Go shake your cushions and find that dollar. Let's go. Until next time, peace.